Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Friday morning group with the Teachers of God Foundation. We're super excited to be here. It's a gorgeous fall day. I don't know if you guys loved this weather this morning like I am. It's been so hot and muggy, and it just feels so freeing. So welcome live streamers. Welcome everybody who's here live. We have a really, really great teacher. Nancy, is it Myers Fitzgerald or Fitzgerald Myers? Nancy Meyer Fitzgerald is gracing us with her beautiful wisdom and teaching today. Her topic is lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my! Atonement, forgiveness, and miracles. So, I don't know if we have too many announcements. I remember Bill told me. Oh, Bill and Lisa are away in Texas for Bill Free's annual family reunion. So, if you guys are watching, hi, we love you so much. We miss you here. We hope you're having a great time. We know you are. Bill did tell me the other day that there's suddenly 3 tickets available for the Boston conference in May. So it's a Course in Miracles conference all weekend long here in the gorgeous Boston, Massachusetts, right downtown. Such a beautiful time to be in Boston. You get to hang out with, 500 people who love A Course in Miracles, who are all making the transition from fear to love. There's the greatest of the great teachers will be there. There's workshops all day long, different teachers. You get to pick which ones you go to. The energy is great. You get to eat your meals. We eat with each other. We stay overnight. We play. So if you think it's you, there's 3 tickets because it was sold out. There's 3 tickets available. Oops, now there's only 2 tickets available. Anyone else? Do I hear one? Yeah, like an auctioneer. 2 tickets. Awesome. So excited, Martha. You can learn more if you go to our website, which is teachersofgod.org. You'll also see all the other online programs that the Teachers of God Foundation is running. We have our free 40-day program, our mastery program, which is Living in Purpose, ACIM 365, where Lisa helps people get through the workbook lessons and understand them of A Course in Miracles. And ACIM 365 is also included in our mastery program. Pretty much our mastery program is the big guns. Everything's in there. We have a program called True Prosperity. It's a 7-week program where you actually change the way your relationship and your level of abundance by knowing who you are, by stepping into the truth of who you are, that God has already given you everything and loves you and wants the best for you. And if you're not abundant in every area of your life, it's because somehow it's blocked. So you get to really live as if you are the magnificent, loved, beautiful child of God that you are, and watch how things change. And then we have our transformation room, our new membership site. We just wrapped up our first month. Bonnie wanted me to make sure we talked about that. It's a membership site. We focus on a different topic every month. We just wrapped up our first month of the Art of Surrender, and it's been amazing. September, we're going to focus on radical self-acceptance and self-love. October is dealing with difficult people. November, we're dealing with anxiety. So we get to take a whole month and devote it to this one topic. We use teachings from the greatest teachers around the world. We literally seek out the greatest teachings based on that topic and send out 4 deliverables a month. There's a big library we accumulate this huge library of podcasts. And this is another great program that we have. So we just wrapped that up. I don't think there's any other announcements here. We love you guys. We love you live streamers. We love you, Bill and Lisa. So without further ado, I am so excited when I walked in here to see Arthur Gay back in the house. He is going to read from Cafe Gratitude.
Hi, everyone. Good to be back. I haven't been here for a month. I missed the room and the love.
We love you, Arthur.
I'm going to read August 30th yesterday because I like the first one. The reading is, expectation reduces the joy in life. And underneath it reads, what are you not saying? There's 2 things in life and experience, happiness and the seeking of happiness. And expectation is the seeking of happiness. It's a block. Be open and aware. Thank you.
That's so good. There's two things in life: happiness and seeking happiness. Two things. I love that.
And we usually do things because we think it's going to make us happy.
And Arthur said we usually do things because we think it's going to make us happy. Yeah.
It's the doing.
Yep. It's the doing that gets in the way. I love that. So, excuse me. So this is when we usually greet each other. We greet each other a little bit differently here. Well, it shouldn't be too much differently, but we practice greeting each other by just seeing the light in somebody, seeing the truth of who they are. That's what namaste means. And so the truth in you greets the truth in them, and the love in you greets the love and the highest in them. And we use the word namaste. So we're going to take a minute and do that. Okay, guys, let's come back to our seats. Martha. We'll have fun. Everybody, you want to come back to your seats, please? You can love each other more later. Bring the love down. What do you think this is? Oh, it's a love fest. It's a love party, always. It's like, I can't even stop you guys once you start going. Okay. Can you show the live streamers your shirt? May the course be with you. Oh, you have it on too. Your scarf was hiding it. Isn't that great? Okay, so without further ado, I am honored and excited and happy to present you with your speaker, teacher, friend for today, Nancy Meyer Fitzgerald, on her topic, Lions, Tigers, and Bears, Atonement, Forgiveness, and Miracles. Oh my.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning, Nancy.
Let's start with the lesson from the first month of the Transformation Room and surrender our time, our attention to God. So bow your head for a second. Good morning, God. Thank you for the unity and collection of brothers and sisters we have so that we can share our creations. Be with us as we listen and hear and learn and share. And so it is. Amen. Woohoo! This is always fun once I get started. It's the getting started part that always feels a little crazy. That title came to me sort of out of the blue. I didn't even recognize that it came from The Wizard of Oz until I looked it up. But it just feels like we're always contending with lions and tigers and bears, or things we think are lions and tigers and bears. As I understand it, the straw man, as they're on the yellow brick road to to the Wizard of Oz, as it turns out. They're going to play with the microphone a little bit here.
Lions and tigers and bears.
Yeah, he was asking it. He was asking his traveling companions. So, do you think off the yellow brick road there's any lions and tigers and bears in there that might like to eat like straw? The scarecrow said it. Yeah, and so then that fear was out, right? And so then they all made a game of it, and apparently they walked along the yellow brick road, all three of them, just chanting, lions and tigers and bears, oh my, lions and tigers and bears, oh my. So even without me knowing quite where that came from, it's been embedded in my experience and my head. So for some strange reason, I was going to concentrate on, and I'll mention it, but not the only thing, something like, what is atonement? There was a newbie in our Sunday group who was asking me after the group, and she said, what is atonement? And I'm thinking, uh-oh. And I'm going to read a few, and then I thought, well, atonement and miracles and forgiveness all go together. So I'm going to read a couple of excerpts from collected mentions in the Course about atonement, assuming I get the right page here. There it is. And then we'll see. So atonement means correction or the undoing of errors. And then this course is concerned only with atonement or the correction of perception. And to follow the Holy Spirit's guidance is to let yourself be absolved of guilt. Healing and atonement are not related. They are identical. Healing and atonement. So there's one. And then there's forgiveness. These particular pages are the most worn in this book. That forgiveness is healing needs to be understood if the teacher of God is to make progress. To forgive is merely to remember the loving thoughts you gave in the past and those that were given you. Forgiveness is a selective remembering. And then this one is actually from Matthew Bronstein, who's a teacher of the Course in Florida. Forgiveness is our willingness to accept God's evaluation of who we are instead of our own. And then a miracle. A miracle is a learning device which lessens the need for time. It does this by the underlying recognition of perfect equality and holiness between doer and receiver on which the miracle rests. Miracles are merely the translation of denial into truth. Denial into truth. A lesson is a miracle which God offers to me in place of thoughts I made that hurt me. And then, when it's all done, one of my favorite quotes, which comes from the terms at the end, the very end of the book, for true perception is a remedy with many names. Forgiveness, salvation, atonement, true perception, all are one. So the bottom line is, for me at this stage, I don't need to remember a definition for any of those things, because the whole point isn't a common theology or even my own theology. It's that we have a common experience. And the experience comes from being with each other. It's like even today, I can't share this creation that's my present moment course being out loud and in sequence without an audience. So you're part of this creation as I share whatever comes out of my mouth today. Actually, I'm going to be taking a look at the section in A Course in Miracles. This I'm reading from the new C&E edition, and it's similar in the Blue Foundation of Inner Peace book. It's chapter 9, section 6. In this book, it's called The Witnesses to Your Reality. It's interesting that in the Blue book, it's called The Acceptance of Your Brother. One of the questions that often comes up about A Course in Miracles is, so am I supposed to love myself first, or am I love my brother first? And that's a little bit like asking, well, do I love my mother or my father more? You know, and the answer is yes. I mean, there's no, you don't choose. It's not a yes or no kind of a question. And notice that Witness to My Reality was also titled something, Acceptance of My Brother. So it's like one feeds into the other. When I witness my own reality, it's because I've had a relationship with my brother or sister, and it comes back to me. So let me read a little bit, and I've also had a busy couple of weeks for sure of experiences and expansion, some of which I want to at least tell the short version of. So the witness to your reality. How can you become increasingly aware of the Holy Spirit in you except by his effects? You cannot see him with your eyes, nor hear him with your ears. How then can you perceive him at all? If you inspire joy in others, and others react to you with joy, even though you are not experiencing joy yourself, there must be something in you that is capable of producing it. If it is in you and can produce joy, and if you see that it does produce joy in others, you must be dissociating it in yourself. So if we're in a hole and other people can be cheerful around us, or even think we're funny because we're so down or so silly about what we're worrying about, then that's actually a witness to the fact that joy is in me and something's wrong, something's off, that I'm not also feeling it. It seems to you that the Holy Spirit does not produce joy consistently in you only because you do not consistently arouse joy in others. So maybe I'm not focusing on them instead of me. Their reactions to you are your evaluations of his consistency. Ooh, hear that? They're my mirror. They're the ones who, by their reaction when I'm around, their reaction to me, to you, are your evaluations of the Holy Spirit's consistency. Whoops. When you are inconsistent, you will not always give rise to joy, and so you will not always recognize his consistency. What you offer to your brother, you offer to the Holy Spirit, because he cannot go beyond your offering in his giving. I actually have to open up to receive what is mine from Holy Spirit or life or my brothers and sisters, or that closed downness of me is the limit to which I can receive. When you are in, sorry. This is not because he limits his giving, but simply because you have limited your receiving. So that puts it back in our power. We could say on us, and sometimes that feels like it's a burden, but in fact, it's a power that we have. It's a choice, and we can exercise it as soon as we're comfortable with it and ready and are willing to take the next step and the next step and the next step.
It's an inside job.
Yes, it is. It's an inside job, Will says. The will to receive is the will to accept. The will to receive is the will to accept. If your brothers are part of you, you will accept them. Only they can teach you what you are, and your learning is the result of what you taught them. In the Sunday group, one week I had to have paper strips and put together a Mobius strip. I don't know whether you know what that is or not. A long, thin bunch of paper strips. You twist one end, bring the two ends together and tape them, and then you have this kind of infinity sign looking thing, but it's also twisted one plane off from the other. And when you put your pencil down on it or your pen, you can trace that surface all the way around back to the beginning of your pen mark without picking up your pen, and it's on, quote, both sides of the piece of paper. To me, that infinity sign is the relationship that I have with other people. You know, it's like, so it's hard to tell whether you started it or I started it, and it doesn't really matter, because wherever we start on that Mobius strip, that infinity sign, that out and back kind of relationship symbol, you can follow it all the way back, and that's what it's telling us here. It's we're in relationship with everybody, and the extent to which we receive is controlled by us. We may not know it. We may be still wounded from old things or habits or parental teachings, but the cool thing is it's sitting there like a gift, and you can open more and more and more and more of it.
You inherited it. It can't be taken away.
That too. You inherited it, and it cannot be taken away. It's sitting there with you. So you get to decide what you do with it. God has but one Son, and that's all of us, knowing them all as one. Only God himself is more than they, but they are not less than he is. There's another one of those Mobius strip kind of statements. You know, it's true. It doesn't make logical sense, but in fact, the whole point of the Course is to get us beyond just our logic, to get us out of just our mind. It doesn't say give up your mind. In fact, it uses reason and logic all through here to help convince us that we start with our mind to connect to our heart so we're wholehearted. Would you know what that means? That God himself is more than they, the Son, but they are not less than he. If what you do to my brother, you do to me, and if you do everything for yourself because we are part of you, everything we do belongs to you as well. Every son God created is part of you and shares his glory with you. His glory belongs to him, but is equally yours. You cannot then be less glorious than he is. He is more than you only because he created you. He with a capital H, which means God. So you can't be, God cannot be, God is more than me only because he created me, but not even this would he keep from you. So it's like, it's that God's greater and we're not less. So in living this kind of message that's now some weird Mobius strip and various experiences in me, it's like I find that I am beginning to recognize the way I get my guidance. So some of you may know for 3 or 4 months I've been looking around for a place to purchase as my home and as a place to share. And it expanded in the course of the search to include a meeting space, which as I say it out loud, I'm thinking, what are you committing to? But kind of a Vicky North or a place to have enough people that it's a retreat or a speaker or a gathering or whatever. And about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I thought I found the place. You know, I was driving along Ferry Road to go find one of the listings that was coming to me. And my son's helping me remote control from Pittsburgh because he's a realtor and he gets the MLS listings at the same time I do. And he's the one, bless him, who says, Mom, I did this for Dad and I'm willing to do this for you. He says, I will come and renovate a place and make it home for you. So you're settled in there and you don't have to worry about it. And I don't have to worry about it anymore. You know, like for the next 15 years, I'll know it's solid and safe and I'll get rid of the tub for you. He's, you know, that's an unsafe thing. So it's like, so I'm going and I find a place that's for sale on Ferry Road, which is parallel to the main highway. And it was in Salisbury, almost to Newburyport. It had this great big flat land. It was split level. So upstairs it had a layout that looked like, oh, I could be there. Downstairs it looked like, oh, that's renovatable to a place to rent. And then it had this immense, they called it great room. It's probably at least as big as this space, maybe, that came off the first level, right off the living dining room kitchen area that was already circular traffic pattern. And I thought, oh, wow, this is it. And I'd already missed one a few weeks back that I thought I was interested in by delaying going to see it. So I got to see it. And then I thought, oh, this is it. You know, this puts it all together. And I signed an agreement to sell. 3 or 4 days later, I got an inspector referred to by one of our group. And he did a great job, and he took pictures of all the things that he was concerned about. And he put an electronic report together the same day, so it was easy to share. And then as we're walking out from the inspection, I took another walk around the outside of the building by myself, and it was overcast then compared to a little earlier. And I find that there's this cloud of mosquitoes kind of following me, and I'm like, kind of like batting at these mosquitoes. So in addition to the report having some things that were pretty fundamental, like there was a sag in the roof, the great room, which sort of stands on pillars and a beam up a level, you know, it doesn't really have anything except a storage room, which they don't keep anything in. Under the great room had a huge beam running the long way, and it had 3 poles that were kind of like maybe 4 inches in diameter, swing set kind of strength. One of them, of the 3, wobble. I mean, you could move it. It wasn't weight bearing. And all of them were hooked to the big beam with the brackets that you would use to put wood on a shelf if you were making a makeshift shelf. So we knew it needed to be addressed. And somebody from this group also came and looked at it and talked through the problem maybe for half an hour while he said, well, there's only 2x6s up here. I wouldn't do it that way. It doesn't look like it's hooked into the house. You know, I think it would work. And he says, and then I said, well, he says, I don't know how much weight it would bear. And I said, well, how much? He says, oh, maybe 20 people. And I'm saying, oh, wait a minute, there's more people than that in the Sunday group. I couldn't even have an out meeting. And he said, well, and then he figured out, well, maybe if we add a whole nother beam, and he didn't estimate a high cost, but we're now looking at kind of re-supporting the whole structure. So the roof sags, the beams, iffy, the front steps are irregular, it has a shallow landing, and this is Massachusetts, so it's not always July. So I'm starting to wonder about how people get in and out of this building. And then the other exit is from the great room itself, which was a wooden set of staircases on the exterior all the way to the ground that also looked a little, the railing was wobbly. There were a couple of, so it's like, okay, this doesn't look like a fun way to spend money before I even get to the stuff that I want. The electrical stuff system the whole panel need to go from 100 amps to 200 amps. And some other kind of things. So it's like my intuitive self is up here being happy and excited about, oh, look, all these three parts that I care about are coming together. And the days go by and finally it starts. And then I've been in and out of the property for maybe, I think 5 times by Saturday. And I'm thinking, every time I was there, the mosquitoes were biting at me and everybody else. Some people just got right back in their cars when they came to see with me. And even though it seems silly, the kicker was the mosquitoes. It's like, not only was this other stuff there, how could I use it as a gathering place if every time we wanted to use the space, the yard outside? So I actually dug out my agreement to, what did I sign? What have I already promised? And looked at it, and I had one more day. This was like Saturday night at midnight. The next day was the 10 days, after which I could not say that as a result of the home inspection, at my sole discretion, I terminated the sale. So and I sort of went to sleep on it Saturday night, although it wasn't really night, it was more like 1 a.m. And sent my son a text that I wanted to talk in the morning. But by the time I got up in the morning early, I was pretty sure that I was ready to send that text. It didn't matter what, and my son had been very even-handed, If you like it and this makes sense and this is how you want to spend your money, fine. We'll do it and it'll be awesome. And here's my rule of thumb for estimating how much it'll cost even before we get to the other stuff. And if you want to put another $100,000 in this house, and will it hold its value? So he's being kind of rational about it. So, of course, my realtor was a little bit surprised, but it went through. It all took place, and it was done. And for me, it was the first time in my life that I ever would have had the guts to do something like that. It's at least the 5th house that I've been part of, or maybe the only person buying. And the idea that partway through I might be able to back out of it would have been enough to say, oh no. I can hear my mother, oh, the poor boy, you'll hurt your realtor's feelings. Or everybody else would be disturbed if I changed my mind and act on my guidance. So in fact, the fact that I did it feels like a result of the work of this course. It's something about claiming my worth and my guidance and my truth. And I have to say, too, that 50 years ago or so, when I was married, I couldn't get a credit card in my own name. And now, as an individual woman looking to buy this house, neither the realtor or the mortgage broker or any of the other agents or anybody I've run into in this process has given me any indication that I'm anything but a buyer to be taken seriously. So that kind of thing has changed. And to the women in the room, we can start acting like it's true. We don't have to pretend that it's still like it used to be. We can't let the past predict the future. It doesn't have to. Every moment is really now, and so we get to choose, and we get to choose, and we get to choose. And for me, the bottom line, it's like we teach processes for forgiveness and opening up to miracles and being at one with other people. And part of it is my relationship with myself. There really isn't anybody. I mean, there's one of those either or yes questions. It's my relationship with myself. Byron Katie would say, you're the relationship you've been looking for. You're really the only one you're related to. No two people have ever met, is the way she says it, because we always are projecting onto that other person who we think they are, what they did the last time we were with them, maybe what they did 20 years ago. They're not changing. They're still the person I know. And in a way, we freeze each other in place because we don't leave people the room to be who they are now, today. What's going on today? What right now? What are you choosing now? Do it again. Choose again. You don't have to. You're not frozen in place. All right, let's go back to the course for a little bit and see how it sounds with an example in place. Because the sonship must create as one, you remember creation whenever you recognize part of creation. So in that process I just described, a handful of you actually got to the property and looked around. A lot of you are asking, so how's it going? What's happening? You're part of that creation with me, especially as it's formulated a piece that now says, I want a place to gather. I mean, if it was just me, I wouldn't be doing that. I don't need that all by myself. So this is us, sonship creating as one. We're doing it. And in lots of ways, that's just one example that I get to live. Each part that you remember adds to your wholeness, because each part is whole. So there again, it doesn't match what the science people would say, Newtonian mathematics, or the kind of earthly mathematics. It's got an interdimensional quantum mathematics. It's like every part adds to your wholeness, like as it's an addition problem, because each part is already whole. So you're adding whole and whole and whole, and you still get whole. But that the math teacher would go crazy with that, right? And it's like, oh no, forget that. So A Course in Miracles, as I see it, starts with us where we are. We think we're separated. We think it's everybody else's fault. And it starts early in the book, and it gradually takes us deeper and deeper into claiming who we are, giving up the junk, having a way or multiple ways to notice when we got off track. So it's not that I don't get in a hole sometimes. It's just that I see it much quicker, and I can almost observe it like an eye in the sky, like seeing what's going on. And sometimes I want to stay there for a little while. It's like I want to have a little tantrum or play with those ideas or whatever. But as soon as I say, I'm through with that it can be over. Another way that I've found expansion in parallel to A Course in Miracles, or maybe because of A Course in Miracles, is to get a variety of help from different practitioners who do holistic medicine or counseling. So I've had craniosacral physical therapy from a couple people. One person went more toward use the sensing of the body where the blocks are or the pain is, to move it to a counseling mode that's kind of like a find the block, where's the little kid, what's going on, and release it. The person I'm working with now, who I think at least half a dozen of people in these groups is also working with in Newburyport, is truly gifted in, she'll talk, but she's not counseling. And when she puts her hands in a place that she understands is blocked, they get poker hot. I mean, like heating pad hot. You can feel it. So there's quantum energy coming through that brother to the spot physically where something's stuck. And yesterday was the 4th session I'd had with her. The session before that, at one point, she was working up at my head. And I actually went because the hip pain that bugged me for like 2.5 years that I declared gone in January was thinking it was back. I don't know whether it's because I walked on Plum Beach and along the breakers, and one leg's up this way. When you go this direction, you turn around and it goes this way, or what. But at any rate, it felt, and I thought, I don't want this back. And my thinking, I said, anyway, she was working on the hip, and then she was working up here. And last week she said at one point, do you feel the light going through you? She said, I can feel this light just coming right through you at the cellular level. Well, this sensor, this person has to say, I could feel that she was connected. I don't think I felt it quite like she did. And so she was my mirror. She's telling me what's there in a way that I personally don't sense. I sense other kind of things, but that's not one of them. And when it was finished, she said, I think I cleared some stuff too when we were doing that work. And she was spritzing some homeopathic something to make sure that whatever we jointly let go of is cleared. Well, this is something that the logical, mathematical, scientific kind of person that I was until maybe 20 years ago wouldn't even have allowed. And so the fact that I've done enough, I met this person, and they actually received guidance out loud that they could dictate in words. And I've gotten this kind of training, and I've had this kind of training, and I know for myself that either when I'm in craniosacral therapy, or sometimes when I'm sitting in this room, if something really lands on me and it feels like it's mine, it's a lesson or a knowing, it's like my body now twitches. It's like, they're like, okay, that's what it is. And so it doesn't even bother me anymore. It's a little awkward in public, but besides that, it's like, oh, look, I get to release something. And I'm sure everybody doesn't do it the same way, but I say this partly to tell us that sometimes when we see people up here teaching and it seems like we have a similarity to each other, that you think, oh, I'm supposed to do it that way. You're supposed to pay attention to how it's coming to you, which can be really different from person to, even from time to time. So it was kind of my intuition about the house inspection report, but then I had to get my science mind back enough to say, okay, what do I do with this, and what am I deciding, and then what's the action I have to take? But the first knowing was kind of in my intuition, was like, something's off. It's like, can you refuse a house because of mosquitoes? Well, maybe you won't tell them that, but when you get right down to it, in a way that was pivotal. It wasn't the only thing, but it was pivotal. All right, let's see what else here. All right, this is only chapter 9, and there's 31 chapters, and then the whole workbook lesson for students. And it says, you are not yet awake, but you can learn to awaken. I think that's no longer true for some of the people in this room. I think we are awake. And it doesn't mean it's all over, that we're finished. There's no more expanding or learning to be done, but that we know the method, we know the lessons. We just get to keep practicing them, so we get better and better and more and more expansive. Very simply, the Holy Spirit teaches you to awaken others. So you can learn to awaken. The Holy Spirit teaches you to awaken others. So here we go again. Here's our interaction. We're doing this as one. I can't really do it by myself. And yeah, I can sit and read the book all by myself, and it can make some difference, but it's really when I react with other people that it lands, that they know it and I know it, and I can receive a miracle. I can have a change in perception, because when I'm sitting there by myself on the couch, I don't even know what assumptions I've made about dumb stuff until I'm interacting with somebody else, and I see, oh, they see that entirely differently. As you see them, others, that you're going to awaken, as you see them waken, you will learn what waking means. And because you have willed to wake them, their gratitude and their appreciation of what you have given them will teach you its value. If you've been here more than 2 or 3 times, you've probably seen progress in other people in the room. You've seen it in the presenters. You've seen it in the people in the chairs. It's like they're more confident, they're more willing. They'll be the one to say the prayer in the closing. They'll speak up and tell their story or what part they want to contribute to it. So we do see it, and that's how we see the value. They will become the witnesses to your reality as you were created witness to God's. I was created as a witness to God's reality. The amazingness that any single human being is a demonstration of God's love and creativity and expression. But when the sonship comes together and accepts its oneness, it will be known by its creations, who witness to its reality as the Son does to the Father. All right, I'm going to skip a couple paragraphs if you happen to be following in a book. Turn in the page. So it says, accept your brother in this world and accept nothing else. For in him you will find your creations, because he created them with you. You will never know that you are co-creator with God until you learn your brother is a co-creator with you. So I can't really express my own power completely until I understand that I'm co-creating with everybody I run into. You know, the person I get gas from, the person that's whistling on the way out the door this morning, and I say, oh, it's nice to hear the whistle. You know, and he says, he responds back. You know, so it's like all this kind of stuff, if you connect in any way, even if that's the only thing that it is, that's the oneness. God's will is your salvation. Oops, did I get that? Yeah, that's right. Would he not have given you the means to find it? If he wills you to have it, he must have made it possible and very easy to obtain. So it's our stubbornness that's usually the barrier, not the fact that it's not out there. Your brothers are everywhere. You do not have to seek far for salvation. Every minute and every second gives you a chance to save yourself. Do not lose these chances, not because they will not return, but because delay of joy is needless. So another thing that happened in the craniosacral process, this was just yesterday, is she starts with my hip and she says, oh, it's better, and then she did a little work on my hip, and then she kept going, and all of a sudden I'm twitching a little bit, and then what popped into my mind was one of my brothers, the one who has decided not to speak to us siblings. And I realized that even though I could admit it quietly to myself a while back, that he was kind of the one that somehow, when we do our weekend work parties at my mom's house, when we were all back together as adults for the first time, you know, they all had a system in Florida, a family system, and I really wasn't an integral part of it. I'd come visit and leave. And so it was really my brother-in-law that was the default leader or decision maker. When I came, there was some adjusting to be made about how this was going to go. And I had an expectation somehow that there would be some consultation and then we'd make a decision and go ahead. And it turns out that sometimes I'd get there and all of a sudden the decision was made and they were putting up shingles instead of continuing to take a look at the possibility of siding, and I didn't know the decision had been made. But at any rate, we'd work from like Saturday morning till stay overnight there and camp out and be there till early Sunday afternoon, and then we'd stop and have dinner together and we'd all go home. But we did that every weekend for the best part of 2 years because this little wooden frame house on the beach was neglected. It's in the family genes, right? This remodeling and fixing kind of stuff. And so at the end of the days, it was Florida. It was hot. even in the winter, which is much more comfortable, it could be really hot. So we were all tired, we were all hot, we were all ready to be through for that weekend. And at that point, I can remember at least 2 occasions, maybe 3, when my brother, the one brother came to me for something and asked me a question, and my safety valve escaped on him. And so I wasn't patient. I mean, it wasn't terrible. Well, one of them was, but the first couple weren't. But I could feel them, and he could feel them. The last one, or the one that's most pivotal, was he was there all day. Actually, it was during the week. He was the only one there, and I was there with my mom, who had dementia. So if there was a noise or even a person, who's that? She'd ask me every 5 minutes what was going on. So my brother was working to replace 2x6 beams on part of the roof, and he had figured out in his cleverness a way to get them pretty much up there all by himself, with pulleys and levers, and like every once in a while he'd ask me to help, and then it didn't always work that well. But so he was up that day with dropping the beams, like putting them in place and then putting the plywood on them that would be the roof cover. So when I'm sitting with my mom on the couch and her antique glassware behind us on shelving is going boom, 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 when the beams land, she keeps asking me, "What's that noise?" "That's Jim working on the roof." No, but she's asking like every 5 minutes, all day long. And I'm fixing dinner for all of us and in and out with her, and he comes in and he goes to take a cover, like an old bedspread off of the furniture, and I'd put the bedspread on, and it had a glass compote with shells in it, and I was concerned that he'd pull that bedspread and pull that stuff under it off. And I said, don't, careful. And he just looked at me and he said, "How come every time I come here you abuse me?" And that's when my real safety valve blew. And it wasn't pretty. But it was actually only until yesterday that I could, in a deeper way, in the part of my body that still held that experience, I'd been able to admit to myself that, yeah, in some way I abused him, that he was the one somehow that seemed the easiest to express my frustration, my tiredness, my hot, my having too much to do, being overloaded with responsibility in that place, without being so great at asking for help or saying what was going on. It's like in our family, we tend to stuff it all in and keep going. And yesterday, when Joan got to whatever place it was, then the tears started. And I went through some of the kind of things I know to do for forgiveness. And first I thought, okay, I've done forgiveness practices on this particular incident 4, 5, 6 times before. When the Edwin Gaines one that says forgive somebody 70 times 7, and you write it out in the morning 35 times and at night 35 times, and you do it for a week. That he was one of the subjects of that. But this time, I thought, okay, where's that little kid that thinks he's abused? And I saw my brother about this tall. He's the beanpole, the tall, skinny one in our family. And he had his dark-rimmed glasses on as an 8-year-old. And he was standing there actually in front of a mirror that at some point in our childhood history, he didn't like those glasses. We'd taken a mirror off the wall in the dining room, and there, tucked behind the mirror, were his glasses. It's like somehow he lost them. But when we found them that way, we knew he didn't lose them. And even now, I'm getting the skull cap of God bumps. And I had compassion for that little boy, who didn't like whatever he didn't like. And he too didn't have a way to say, I don't want to wear these glasses. I'm not going to wear these glasses. So he hid them behind the mirror. And there was this little boy who, for whatever reason, he was kind of, I don't know where the middle child is in 4, but he's one of 2 middle children, the oldest boy, but the 3rd child out of 4. And so then there were more tears. And then I'm thinking, oh, okay, I can imagine my mom and dad on the other side just cheering us on. Oh, look what's happening. They're coming to some peace. And then I could say, okay, let's bring in my grandparents. Well, that was pretty funny because one of my grandfathers was an engineer and the other was a physician, and they were kind of brusque. I'm thinking, oh, you guys are up there too? All right, you help me too. And then my grandmas, one of whom I never knew. And then I think, all right, let me bring in all of our siblings who are still here. You know, and I'm going through our family of 4 kids and bringing in the 5th, who's my brother-in-law, and seeing my mom and dad and all of us as we grew up at the dinner table that had a yellow Formica top. and that when anybody was missing from that table, there was a big hole. Didn't matter that it seemed like a big crowd when we were all there. When one was missing and you knew it. So it's like the help from the physical treatment, the physical craniosacral, and the awareness that I knew that I needed and wanted to release that, got it. The next stage released. Hopefully that's it. I now know that I want to write a note. I've written to him before and he hasn't responded, but I need to go back. That Byron Katie has a lovely way of saying a way to go back to people after you've done a process and you've got a new perspective and you want to see if you want to make it right. And it's something like not explaining to them what happened necessarily, but just to say, you're right. After reconsidering or contemplating, I realized that there were ways that I abused you. And is there a way I can make it right? And then that's kind of it. If they can tell you something that you can do, fine. But at least you've done the closure from your side. And then they got free will too, right? So if he chooses to spend the rest of his days not connected to us, then he's still in my heart, that little boy. All those images of that hardworking brother who showed up. He's also the one with chronic fatigue fibromyalgia that inspired me to be pulled into the medical medium books, because he talks about a whole different reason for that. Those unexplained autoimmune diseases, which he says are never true. Your body doesn't attack you. It's attacking whatever it thinks the byproducts are to get rid of. It's doing what it needs to get rid of, usually a virus or sometimes other things. But it was his, having worked with him and known his coming to work at that house in Florida, even when he didn't feel well. So I never knew who was coming in the door, whether he'd just not look at me and keep going and start working, or whether he could sit and visit. So we're one. It's not my preference that we don't get to talk and communicate, but we're one anyhow. So I don't think I read the very last paragraph. Let me read this paragraph that'll close this section, and then we'll open up for any sharing or comments. Your brothers are everywhere. You do not have to seek far for salvation. Every minute and every second gives you a chance to save yourself. Do not lose these chances, not because they will not return, but because delay of joy is needless. God wills you perfect happiness now. Is it possible that this is not also your will? And is it possible that this is not also the will of your brothers? Consider then that in this joint will, you are all united, and in this only. There will be disagreement on anything else, but not in this. This then is where peace abides, and you abide in peace when you so decide. Amen. I appreciate the peace and the quietness and the stillness. They want to share? Do we have a floating mic? Maybe not. There's one.
It reminds me of my son, right? Because I can't really talk to him, so I'm trying to find out what he's teaching me, and so it's more like, yeah, I can pray for him, but I don't. I think of it, and then I don't do it. So that it feels so hard, but it just I think I'm in the middle. So I'm getting the lesson. So what I think, like the little boy, is he's just there to teach you that he said, you abused me, right? So did you abuse yourself?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And yes, and that's a perfect reflection. Thank you. And I've been there with that thought as well, but it's something like, yeah, I was abusing myself because I too was kind of working until I was exhausted and waiting for it to be over and tired and hot and not saying to my brothers and sisters, partly because it looked to me, I already decided, right, that nobody else could help me, which wasn't true when I decided or needed to go for a weekend or something. But I decided that I wasn't going to share that, or I didn't have the skills or the habits or the family training or the experience to say, I don't know what I'm asking for here, but I just need to tell you, I feel overloaded. Right now this is too much. And sometimes I did that. I got off for a weekend every once in a while, and my sister and brother-in-law would get my mom and take her to their house. At one point, that was when my sister was visiting with my mom, and my mom was saying, there's the nicest lady at my house. She does all these things for me, and she's there. She says, but I have no idea who she is. And it was at that point my sister realized she was talking about me. So it was, and part of what I wanted and needed from my brother, and I realized this afterwards in the mirror kind of thing, is I needed adult interaction that was present. My mom was there, but she was the long goodbye. There were times when we could have a cool, interactive, sometimes very funny conversation, but it wasn't very linear, sequential. So what I really was, when he'd come in the middle of the week, I really was hoping that we could talk, and he was probably feeling sick or needing to do the work he planned, or had just done the work in the sun on the roof in Florida, pitching 2x6 beams around. He was spent too, and he came from the same family I did. He didn't have the skills to say either, this is too much, I'm pushing myself too hard, too far. So I guess part of the message is, for me, pay attention to what I'm feeling, and then even if all I do is say out loud to somebody, this is off, this doesn't feel right, let me say this out loud, and don't hold me to any particular conclusion or decision because of it. And maybe I don't even want your help. I just need to say it out loud, because in my mind, if it's in my mind and it's bonging around, when I say it, it might still seem almost the same size, but it's shrunk in comparison to being out here instead of just me. So that's part of honoring myself now, and I'm better at it, but I still have things to learn. Will.
Hi, on the bright side of that, we had a brand new grandson this summer.
Yay.
And we also had a brand new granddaughter that's 17, and she hadn't been around us. And all the adults went to the hospital with with the mom, and I was with the kids. And the new one, the 17-year-old, we were doing errands or something, running around for the 3 days that I had him. And on the last day, she said, everyone seems to like you where we go. So that's the other side of that.
Yes, yes.
You know, I mean,
Your life
notice that when it is like that, everyone seems to like you. They smile at you. You greet them friendly.
Yeah.
She's like, everyone seems to like you. And she hadn't come from that situation. 17 years. She had been in the opposite situation.
Yeah. So cool. So we can teach. So the cool thing is once we get it, even a little bit of it, or it's given and we're willing to receive it. You know, we don't really get it. It's given. It's already there. And the point is to open up to it, to allow it to come into us. But once we have even the first glimmer, it's self-reinforcing, right? It's like, oh, it feels so good. And then you share it and somebody else says, yeah, it's like people like being around you or they see it.
I'll give you another example. We were with the younger grandchildren. They were like maybe 8, 9, and 10. And we're on a train going into D.C. We're going to go visit or whatever. And on the train, we look around and everyone's like, you know, sad faces, you know, just whatever they're doing. And I said, watch this, Ray. And then we started smiling at people. And pretty soon the whole train car was smiling at each other. And us. She said, how do you do that?
You smile, huh? Yeah, awesome. Here, over here.
Your mom, with the forgetting, she couldn't put a name to the image, but the love she could experience. You
Yes,
can't
right.
take that away.
Yeah, you're right.
That's all there is. The name and the image are meaningless. It's the love.
Yeah. It didn't matter if she knew I was her daughter or not.
No.
It was okay. She let me stay in her house, which is pretty unusual for my mom because she wouldn't have wanted strangers in there. But as far as I was concerned at that point, except she didn't any longer call me a stranger. She called me the nicest lady. Not her daughter, but the nicest lady.
The truth of the experience was just the love.
Yes.
And everything else is the story. The
Yes,
image.
yes. And that's true for the 2.5 years that whole family system went together and worked and were together and knew who each other were and as adults in a way that we hadn't before in service of our mom. So yeah, that's the bottom line. Even, and for me it is too. And because I lived in Pittsburgh and everybody else stayed nearby in Florida. I wasn't available for some of the things that my mom needed along the way. Like if she had a hip replacement or whatever, I was somewhere else. So I felt that was my turn to be there in a different way. Bonnie.
Thank you, Nancy. I love you. I just want to say what you brought up for me, or what I want to acknowledge, is in that moment when you're hot and tired and someone else is hot and tired, if you don't say this isn't working for me, it's not an expression of self-love, and then therefore it's not an extension of love. So the best thing we can do, thank you for pointing it out, is to say, this is not good working for me.
Yeah.
Because saying it would change the whole energy, I would think. That's my impression. But thank you. We just have a few comments from live streamers that we're going to share with you, Nancy, in the group. Shauna is saying, I'm feeling my dad and all we've been through. I vilified him for 20 years, and 2 years ago, I reached out to reconnect. I thought I'd forgiven him as he was an abusive dad. However, I was his favorite and I missed him. It changed when I saw him as the little boy who was abused. Also true. Hurt people hurt people. I still have work to do on however much thanks as I feel there is a way to move past this. Becky says, oh my, she nails it here. Such a beautiful and authentically honest way to state all of this. Wow, such tools to use every day. By the way, she made me cry at work.
Oh, see, there's one of our rules, right? Is that
Yeah.
true? I'm not allowed to cry at work?
Judith McNell says, I'm crying. Thank you. People say, so nice to meet you, Nancy.
Nice to meet all of you.
Let's see what we got here. Where in ACM are you reading from? Oh, you did? Okay. And that's great. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Okay. And the only other thing that I was thinking I loved your talk so much. It made me cry too. Earlier when you said, talked about waking up and that there's people in this room that are awake and we never really get there. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the way of mastery. I love it. And there's some part in it that Jesus says, I'm still not done. I'm still every moment asking, how can I get closer to my Father?
Yes.
So I love knowing that this is we're never looking to get there. Every day or every minute, just how can I get closer to God? And we get to do this for eternity together. It's just,
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
And 7 billion deep.
Yeah.
That's a lot of digging.
Yeah, it's part. It's again is that yes no idea. Are you awake? Well, I'm not so sure because I'm still learning, and I can say that I'm sure way more awake compared to what started even 4 years ago. Not to mention 20 years ago. Yeah, I'm awake. And so it's not a yes or no question. It's a yes, and I'm still growing, or yes, I'm still awakening. It's back to that the same, all one surface, and it just looks like it goes out and comes back, and then over. All right, ready? Circle up.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Nancy.
My pleasure.
Circle up.
So what was the page?
Page
Chapter 9, Section 6.
342 in the big book.
Chapter 9, Section
Or there's
6,
I
both
have-
books. Make a big circle, not a horseshoe. Get up, everybody find Andy.
We do. It just takes us a while.
Yep.
It's like everybody belongs.
So if anybody would like to help support the Teachers About God Foundation and support this group to continue and everything that we do in this world to help people with the transformation from fear to love, we have a love box over there. Also, the live streamers, you have a donate button. We appreciate any tithes or offerings or donations, and we're going to bless whatever tithes and donations we get today by doing the unity prayer. Divine love as me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Amen. Does anyone here feel called to say a prayer and pray us out today? Martha.
Martha, yay.
I did feel it. Oh, Father, I just thank you for expressing yourself, extending yourself, that we're it, your expression. Thank you for your love and the light that we are. Thank you for your inspiration, particularly through Nancy today and through each other as we respond, as our hearts respond. Help us to remember. Help us to remember you and give everything from that place of remembering. Thank you for being our home. As we go out, may we shine the light out everywhere we go, everywhere we seem to go, and just remember and love. And so it is.
So it is. Amen.
Thank you for the love.
Bye, everybody.